Namaste, educators. She made it very serious. It seems one mother told, "Get up, it's getting late, you need to go to school," to her daughter. And the daughter woke up and said, "No, mommy, no teachers like me. No students like me. I don't want to go to school." And the mother said, "You should not say like this. You are a principal of a school. You must go." Anyway, just to lighten the moment, the last week I was in a village. There I met a small child who was 2 years. She was singing this song, "Bala Ollevaru Nammissu." She didn't know the lyrics, she was learning then. And this is how she sang. "Bala Ollevaru Nammissu, Nakta Nakta Matadtittu, Schoolgella Kelustu." Well, as Mrs. Jovita Chatterjee said, I was blessed to start the school at a very early of my life. So I credited myself with the post of principal. That was very easy to do. Though I was not qualified, I didn't have B.Ed, I didn't have Montessori training, nothing then. I just called myself. Because it was such a small school, it was okay. And it so happened after 2 years, one fine day, there was a science teacher who went on a 3 months vacation, maternity leave. Third standard science teacher. We didn't have enough funds to hire another one, middle of the academic year. So I thought, anyway, I'm an engineer, can't I teach third standard science? So, jumped in. 3 months. I enjoyed, no doubt. Had a good time, no doubt. But that is when, as a principal, I truly realized what it takes to be a teacher. How much of patience. In those 3 months were my training to understand and respect the educators, to know what amount of patience it demands out of each of us. What amount of hard work, what amount of multitasking, what amount of planning. From since then, we have this culture to be very respectful towards our teachers. And I strongly believe no principal should be a principal as long they're not handling any classes. Having said this, some of them are laughing, I don't know why. I want to tell you all a story, is that okay? A real story, a true story of my father. 60 years ago, long ago, 60 years ago, when poverty and drought was the norm of the day. Poverty was very common. In remote villages, it was very common. And my father came from a very humble family. Those were the time where people hardly went to schools. They went to first standard, second standard, they left. Leaving school was an easy thing. I want to tell about his elder brother, my Dodapa. He went to third standard, he lost his pen. He came back to my grandfather and said, "Papa, I lost my pen, you need to get me another pen to go to school." And my grandfather said, "Ninondu pen idkoluvಷ್ಟು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಏನೋ ಕಲಿತೀಯ ನೀನು?" He said, "ಸರಿ ಬಿಡಿ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ." ಸರಿ ಬಿಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಡ. Maybe my grandfather also felt it's an opportunity to have another person working for the family, which was the need of an hour. That was the time. And in those era, my father, when he was in 10th standard, he was supposed to pay his 10th standard state examination fees. It was 5 rupees way back then. 10th was the last day to make the payment. My father goes to my grandfather on 7th and says, "Appa, ಒಂದು 3 ದಿನ ಇದೆ, 3 ದಿನದಲ್ಲಿ ಫೀಸ್ ಪೇ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಗೆ, ಇಲ್ಲರ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಗೆ ಬಿಡಲ್ವಂತೆ." My grandfather said, "Let's see." That's a very polite way of saying, "Dekenge, let's see what God has stored for us." 9th happened, 10th happened, 11th happened, 12th happened, the last day was over. My father had given up hopes of writing exams. One teacher calls him. One of his teacher calls him and says, "I got my salary on 7th and I saw that your fees was not paid. So I have already paid your fees. You can go and write the examination." That true story. I want to tell you the impact of that. My father became a graduate. My father moved from a remote village to Bangalore. He did well in life. His children did well in life. His son goes up to become an educator. He opens 3 schools. There are 400 staff. There are 2,000 families. Can you imagine the impact of one teacher across generation, across decades? That is the power of each of us sitting here. We are not limited to our classroom. We cross generations. We cross decades. I wonder if that wouldn't have happened. Maybe my father wouldn't have continued his education. Maybe I wouldn't have been educated. Maybe many of my colleagues wouldn't have been employed. Oof. A lot can happen by one teacher. My mentor always told me, there was a time, did you have a naughty child in your class, or you had? So naughty that you felt, I wish he's off at least for one day? Had? I was one such. So I was so naughty that my mother had given up all hopes on me. She was convinced I will be her retirement regret. This fellow will make me. He has come back to take revenge. That's how I was. And I happened to meet a teacher, a mentor. His name was Aparesh Acharya. He meets me, he looks at me, and he says something nobody had told me. He looked into my eyes and said, "Wow, I see a man with so much of potential. I'm amazed to see how much of potential you have and what big you're going to do. I just want to wait and watch, sit back and see you achieve." That was alien to me. I never heard somebody say something like that. I was so moved. Really? I'm cut out for something big? I knew there was one person who believed in me lot more than I believed in myself. There was one person who dreamt for me and my future a lot more than I could dream for myself. Since then, I believe that is the true nature of a teacher. That's why when you enter in the entrance, we have put a big banner which says, "The best gift my teacher can give to my student is to dream for them and to believe in them." Every time I felt a little low, I used to go to him just to borrow belief about myself. Just look into him and feel, yeah, I can do it. Because I know, he knows that I can do it. It's like an iron rubbing himself against the magnet to get magnetized. As simple as that. In fact, when COVID happened, that's the same time, not only online, the Byju's started. Right? I'm sure you're all there. And they were doing a wonderful class, no doubt. And at your hall, in your hall, at your convenience, hardly any amount. Amazing teachers with amazing animations. I was wondering, post-COVID, will children come back to school? I was actually thinking, why should they come back to school? We charge so much of fees, they have to travel, transportation fees. They're in the drawing room, they can sit, the best of the teachers. And you can play it any number of times, they won't get tired. They will not say that don't give me more than 27 periods a week. You can play it any number of times. But what happened was not the same. Children are coming more and more in number. Then why? Even today such platforms exist who probably can teach better than us. Their subject knowledge, their teaching skill, and they can take retake, right? If something goes wrong, they can take a retake. And convenience of sitting at home. Then why is that children are coming to your classrooms? Something worth thinking. Are they really coming because you're teaching math, you're teaching social, you're teaching science? Can't they get the teaching much better, much cheaper, at their convenience, when they want? I strongly believe children come to school to get inspired by teachers. Knowledge is available everywhere. But that inspiration only a teacher can give. In an era when we can't stand our own spouse, children need to learn how to coexist with human beings. How many coordinators are here? They will understand this better, right? So in the place where each of them have a problem with another person, in this era, children need to learn how to coexist, how to socialize, how to fraternize. That's why they come to our schools. I have a small daughter, 5.5-year-old. After doing homework, I ask her to do something extra. Why don't you write this? She says, no, Papa, I don't want to do. I say, why don't you write? Tomorrow you can go and give it to your ma'am. Not that she has asked, but you can give it to your ma'am. She writes. She writes because when she writes and goes and gives it to her ma'am, the ma'am will look into her eyes, receive it and nods. And that means a world to her, that I was acknowledged. Each of you plays such a big role. Just your nod, just a smile, makes a world for children. So this room is the most powerful room in the world because each of us are educators sitting here. I would like to say namaste educators too. All of you. I don't know whether I can really go back and thank all my teachers who made me talk, who made me learn English, who made me learn math, who made me be creative, who made me analyze. I don't know many of them. I don't know where they are. I don't know how many of them are there. But I'm deeply indebted that what I am is because of their product. Their byproduct is what I am. So I want to request something to you all. I want you to think. Close your eyes for a second, please. Lights are on so that I can know whether your eyes are closed or not. Close your eyes and think of that teacher who is alive, whom you know by contact number, whose contact number is in your mobile. Think of that teacher. She might have taught you songs. She might have taught you math. God knows, she might have taught you skating. Say thank you to her.